In 60 seconds, there are 60 million text messages sent, 4.1 million videos viewed on YouTube, 46,000 posts uploaded on Instagram. I think half of those are Kim Kardashian. 452,000 tweets sent, half of those are Donald Trump. This is what's going on in the world at the moment, and it means there's a constant barrage. It's great practice to think about how you can use a platform like Twitter to really condense your message. So instead of having to, you know, when people on Twitter, they put thread and they put a 1 in a bracket, and you know that there's going to be like 50 posts underneath it, trying to do something concise and compelling is a really useful skill to have. So we're going to keep coming back to that point, is making sure that we're adding value. Because every business, every brand is facing the same challenge, tighter budgets. We're expected to do more, deliver better results with less money. And actually, used correctly, social media is a great way of doing that. It's a great way of driving a level of engagement that conventional advertising and marketing just can't deliver. And of course, if we're talking about that on top of a layer of the most effective marketing of all, which is live events, suddenly you're actually achieving that kind of cut-through that delivers real results for minimal spend. Because every brand really wants to stand out. So I find that wow factor is engagement. Wow factor is amplification. Wow factor is a deeper level of connection to the content, to the speakers, to the experiences that you're delivering. And social media is the key to delivering a lot of that. But in order to get that right, we have to think strategically. And I use these exact same slides when I talk about strategic events planning because the principles are all the same. This is a model that we used to use at my old agency, George P. Johnson. Really simple, but incredibly effective. And you can sometimes run this as a brainstorm. You can take half a day to talk through this, asking yourself what you want delegates to feel, think, know, and do is going to deliver a strategic plan for what you're going to go about rolling out at your live event. Feel is really important because it talks about emotional engagement, and it's very easy, particularly in B2B or internal events, to sort of park the emotional bit. You know, we're not doing a Coca-Cola consumer campaign where it's all about feeling because there's not much differentiation. You know, we're in the IT sector and we've got to talk to people about this amazing storage servers. There's no emotion in that. It's just a big box that whirs and ticks and clicks. It's not true, because we still make our decisions based on emotional connections. What did something make us feel? Did we feel inspired? Did we feel compelled? Did we feel shocked? It doesn't have to be lovey-dovey stuff, but it's about understanding that emotional resonance drives behaviours, which gets us to the do at the end. If you're not driving behaviour change, you're not really achieving anything at all. So this is where you want to get to. And in between, there are two other things that we need to consider, which is think and know. Think is all about perception. What positioning thoughts do we want to put in the head of our delegates and attendees? And know what's the information that we need to deliver. And it's really important to try and separate those two out, particularly when managing a social media account for your event, because they can be reacted to very differently. Think is about perception. You can start asking questions. You can drive engagement by initiating a conversation. Whereas the know is, this is the stuff I just need to share with you so that you've got the information. Logistics, venue details, travel information, weather updates, these are the things that help you deliver a better experience. Whereas think is, this is what we're positioning the role of our business in delivering this event. These are the roles that exhibitors or speakers are having. Very important to understand the two different roles. And if we think about engagement, I saw something like this. I've adapted it and updated it with some of my own words. But someone had created a lexicon of engagement for live events. And as I added to it and supplemented it and got it into 4 columns, what I realized was how many of these words that we use to describe engagement are actually digital words. They're words that you can really only achieve on social media. So this is less about putting a nice little bit of social media fairy dust on top of an event because it looks good at the end of event report when you go, oh, we had some social media. It was over here. We did a thing on Facebook. This is actually driving the behaviours that you want to get out of your event. So it's a lot more important than just an afterthought. And ultimately, it just comes down to knowing your audience. This is the best picture I've ever found about the importance of knowing your audience. I feel a kinship to it, although if you replace cats with dogs and wine with vodka, but that's me. And the more you understand your audience, the better the experience you can create. And nowhere is this more true than a recent innovation that Disney have rolled out. You basically fill in your profile online for you and your family before you go to visit the parks, and then all of that information is stored in this little rubber wristband wearable device. So it tells you where you need to be. So you tell it what rides you want to go on, and it tells you what time you've got an appointment to go. So this actually helps you maximize the quality of the experience that you're having. It even allows you to pre-order food, so when you go to one of the restaurants in the park, as soon as you walk through the door, they're getting your food order ready. By the time you get to the counter, they're greeting you by name because they know you're there and they know what you've ordered. Suddenly that feels like a magical experience, and Disney is the brand that uses the word magic over all else. They're actually delivering that, and it's all about using smart technology to understand the audience. Now, I appreciate that the drawback of sharing that anecdote with you is that this cost Disney about $1 billion. And I don't know about you, but billion-dollar budgets for live events are rare. I don't think they're impossible, but I think they're rare. So what we have to do is think about how to take on that same level of audience understanding to create better experiences. And here's a really simple example that I love that really brings that to life. This is Lady Gaga doing her third album. She had a great social media presence already. She knows social media and she uses it to engage with her fan base in a way that was really quite innovative at the time. She also understands that platforms like Spotify, although they're predominantly a music platform, they're still a social media tool as well. Her digital team met the guys from Spotify and they said, hey, we've got some really interesting information. If you look at these listening statistics by region, you'll see that different songs are more popular in different territories. So this really kind of rocky song is really big in France, and this really kind of hard electro EDM song is really big in Japan, and so on, through 3 albums worth of material. And what they were able to do, without ever having to ask the audience a single question, what do you want to hear, what do you want for your encore, which doesn't really work when you've got 60,000 people in an arena anyway, they were able to create a bespoke set list for every location, based on the listening statistics, so they knew what people wanted to hear before they even arrived at the arena. And they created a set list to suit those audience tastes. So we're probably not planning rock concerts, but we can learn from that. If we understand our audience through social media, we can create an experience that feels tailor-made to them. Who doesn't want to deliver that? That, to me, is what real social media engagement and amplification is all about. Bringing people to a place so you can just push content at them doesn't work. You've got to find ways of getting information out of them. These are the brightest people in your business. You've got to pull that out of them, and social media is a great way of doing that. There are some very clear benefits to using social media, whether we're just a brand or a business, or whether in this context we're running live experiences and events. It's a hotline. It gives people a chance to complain. I'll give you another example from Cisco Live a few years ago. We were at Excel in East London, and the World of Solutions was due to open at 10:30, but the educational track on day 2 was starting at 10. So some people had arrived early, hoping they could come into the exhibition area and grab a coffee from the coffee station, but of course the doors weren't open. So they couldn't get a coffee, and they were about to go into like 2 hours of, I can't even imagine what they were learning about as, you know, data storage managers. But this guy went, oh, I was hoping to grab a coffee from the exhibition floor, but he hashtagged the event. And we were in the social media lounge already working on it, and we said, whereabouts are you and what do you drink? And he said, I'm at the main gate, and a skinny latte, please. So we went to our coffee station and took him a coffee. Now, it's not always realistic to do that when you've got 10,000 delegates, but sometimes those little opportunities to hear a complaint in a public forum and turn it around, you go from 0 to hero instantly, because people feel that they can talk to you. And ultimately, if you do something right, that's where you get to go viral. But in order to be viral, you've got to feel real. You've got to be authentic. Usually, you've got to be funny, and we don't always have permission to be funny. Social media, as I said earlier with that example of the timeline for the Cisco Live event, it's a great source of data in terms of your attendees, your delegates, what they're into as consumers, customers. You just have to know where to look, and more importantly, you need to know what to do with it. So if anyone comes to you and says, oh, big data is the future, show them the door. If someone comes to you and says, I can crunch big data and give you 5 really kick-ass insights, invite them in and get them a coffee. It's probably a skinny latte. Social media is a place where you can do a brand check as well. How are we doing? Because you can be having a really great experience at an event, and then suddenly somebody's asking you specific questions about it. How would you rate the catering from 1 to 5? 5 being absolutely amazing, 1 being below par. You're suddenly being asked your opinion, and you step out of the experience that you were having and you start evaluating it. If you're commenting on it as you go, you're giving far more authentic responses, and you're not having to stop and go, oh, hang on, I'm going to step out of being a delegate, having the experience, and I'm going to start being a critic. I'm going to be like the hotel inspector. And in terms of a conversation, it's about recognizing that it doesn't need to be about you. So it's about establishing a conversation. It's about doing what you can to support it, amplify it, facilitating it. These are all the roles that you can play beyond being the broadcaster, beyond being the loudest voice in the room. These are key takeouts that I would ask you to consider the next time you're incorporating social media. One of them is having a dedicated team to do this. Don't expect somebody else just to be able to do this in their spare time, particularly during the event itself, because you need to be on it 24/7. That earlier question about, can you slow down how fast the timeline scrolls? No, you can't, because that's how fast the conversation is going, so you need to be on top of it. And it forces us to raise our game in terms of responsiveness. Those brands and businesses, we've all encountered them, where you tweet them something and they get back to you 3 days later. It's like, I'm sorry, I've already moved on. And in an event, you want a response within 30 seconds. You want to feel like you're actually having a conversation with a human being. Engaging content owners, you guys came up with that idea, and I think that's great, is making sure that the people you're inviting to deliver the content are taking part in a conversation even before the live event takes place. Triggering those shareable moments, I think several of you commented on that, is creating moments that will encourage people to post things on social media. We're not trying to force their hand and telling them what to talk about. We're just giving them opportunities to engage with their own respective followings. And I think this point about creating some do's and don'ts, it's your event, it's your social media profile, so you can set the agenda for how you want other brands and businesses to engage with your hashtag, to represent your business. And finally, be clear with permissions. If you're going to get a team to run your social media presence, set some clear do's and don'ts about what they can do so that they don't feel too constrained, because if they're not given permission, they'll err on the side of caution and they won't really drive proper engagement. If you find interesting, engaging content, you will immerse yourself in it.